Hi, Rob Howard here for EFL Talks again, and we're here with one of our favorites, Marianthi Tsepeli, coming to us from Greece. And let's see, this is your third EFL Talks, isn't it, Marianthi?
Yes, that's right. The third one.
Great. Well, we're so glad you're here. And even though I know Effie isn't hiding next to you this time.
Yeah, there are no surprises this time.
Yeah.
I swear she's not here.
Okay, yeah, maybe she's going to pop in. We'll see. Okay, so I'll let you get started today with your talk for 10 and 10 for terms. And take it away. Thanks for being here.
So, welcome everyone to another edition of EFL Talks, this time for terms. I'm Marianthi Tsepeli and I'm going to talk about classroom management, this multifaceted term that combines many external and internal features of the learning process. So, let's start with the classroom. At the beginning of each school year, a teacher has to decide about their the seating arrangement in their classroom. There are many different variants to choose from, and the teacher has to decide whether this seating arrangement will be permanent or temporary. They can decide also if the student will be sitting alone with a classmate, if this classmate is going to be permanent throughout the year or change, so whether they will be flexible or not. Secondly, they have to take into account classroom displays. Classroom, you can't have too much or too little of it. You have to make sure that all students have some of their work pinned on the wall of the classroom. And of course, that the classroom displays should be at their eye level so that they can interact with what is on the classroom wall. Thirdly, make sure that you know what audiovisual aids are at your disposal, if there are fixtures in your classroom or you can borrow them, how they work, and how you can incorporate them in your lesson in a meaningful way. And fourthly, you must decide if you're going to have any learning, listening, reading corners in your classroom, relaxation stations, or discipline corners, so that all these are some things you have to decide before you step into the classroom. Next, you have to take into consideration classroom conduct. You must establish a set of rules for your classroom. Many teachers at the beginning of the year, they make a class contract and they have all the students sign them, and pin it on the classroom wall so that it is visible by everyone, so that everyone knows what kind of behavior is acceptable and unacceptable. You must also establish some routines, such as what happens if someone wants to go to the bathroom. Can they drink water in the classroom? If they want to speak, should they raise their hand, or do something else? Secondly, lead by example. You have to practice what you preach. You should be polite, you should be on time, do not raise your voice, because you know that if you shout, your students will shout also. And finally, another thing to take into consideration is body language. You don't need to stand, at the front of the classroom with your eyes crossed all the time. You must make non-threatening explanatory gestures, move around the classroom, and depending on your students and the culture of the country in which you are teaching, you must decide how you can approach your students if there's going to be any physical contact. Next comes discipline, a pillar of classroom management. Some people identify it with classroom management, but it's not only this. So, firstly, you have to be firm, fair, and consistent. Don't issue threats that you can't materialize. And before you enter the classroom, you must determine what types of behavior will bring about what types of discipline. For example, what happens when one is not polite or when one does not bring homework? And the discipline you're going to decide on depends on your students' age, their personalities, and the severity, of course, of the trespass. Surely you must communicate with family and or legal guardians in the institution and let them know if there are any disruptive behaviors within the classroom and discuss it with them. And finally, you should hand out praise when it is deserved, and of course, you must give constructive feedback. This is not error correction, it is constructive, meaningful feedback so that students know what their strengths and weaknesses are and how they can become better. Something that is really central to classroom management is that we must get to know our students. We must establish a rapport and a connection with them, get to know their backgrounds, their likes and dislikes, their preferences, their previous learning experience, because we all know that we learn better from people we like. So we need to have that type of warm and meaningful connection with our students and establish an atmosphere of trust that is conducive to learning. Next, another pillar of classroom management is lesson planning and time management, of course. We must be careful and observe the 4 principles of variety, flexibility, creativity, and adaptability. If our lesson is not challenging, if it's not interesting, then students are bound to have disruptive behavior, if it is too easy or if it is too difficult. So we must make sure that we have a meaningful lesson that is organized around the principles that we decide, but that first and foremost is very interesting to the students. Next, I'm going to borrow from Jeremy Harmer. We must decide on the teaching and student roles depending on the task at hand and on the things that we want to achieve in the classroom. We must decide if we want to control our classroom or leave them free to decide for themselves how they are going to reach the aim that we have set them. And of course, combine them with appropriate student roles. Is the whole classroom going to work together? Are the students going to work in pairs, in groups, each one their own? How much of the mother tongue are we going to allow for? I have left some time so that I can talk about this topic, as you can see, the teacher as a person, because I think that this is really central to classroom management. We are all defined by our profession. We want to evolve our craft. We want to network with other teachers. We want to make sure that we keep our qualifications up to date. But we must never forget that we are not just teachers. We must pursue our interests and our hobbies. We must travel, take time to rest, so that we can have a life. Because if we have a life, we have new stories and new experiences to narrate to our students next time we come to class. And before I leave you, I'd like you to take a look to this letter that Albert Camus wrote to his teacher after Camus was awarded with the Nobel Prize. And I'd like to say that teachers are central to the learning process and, of course, to the topic of classroom management. The teachers are the ones who make the lesson worthwhile. Most of the times, they are the reasons that the students want to come to the classroom and participate in the tasks and the activities, regardless of the subject. So I think that what we must all take into account and remember each time before we enter our lesson is that we should be the teachers that we wish we had if we were students ourselves. So thank you very much. I'd like to hear from you if you have the time and if you'd like to contact me to discuss the topic further. And until next time, thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. That was really some great stuff for the classroom that even I forgot. I wouldn't have thought of mentioning some of the things that you
Thank you.